Greetings, 757. I'm Sean Avery, President and CEO of the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, and you're listening to ThinkHire. Thank you for tuning in today to ThinkHire, our monthly podcast brought to you by the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. Each month, we're bringing you thought leaders in the workforce development arena, and today I've got my Veterans Employment Center Senior Director, Sultan Camp. Thank you for being here today, Sultan.
Happy to be here.
Well, welcome to ThinkHire. Thanks for coming today. Who's watching the centers while you're here? Somebody is keep holding down the fort, right?
Well, those have heard me speak before, man. We've got the Chicago Bulls of the late 90s on our staff right now, so they've got it well handled.
Okay, that's good to hear. We don't want to close those things down. You know this better than anybody because you came from industry before this, but we know that the veterans are one of the most greatest things about our region, and they're the great workforce tool for us, and love to keep them here, love to do whatever we can to provide them the services to help them transition into our region, help their families be successful, help their spouses get connected with employment opportunities. And so when we were working on the Veterans Employment Center about 5 years ago, one of the main things we wanted to do was provide them a safe place so that they could get the services that they needed, but not feel like they were being overwhelmed by all the darts being thrown at them. I've heard you say it before, and you'll probably say it a couple times, the sea of goodwill. There's just a lot of it out there. And sometimes that goodwill is not always so positive. Sometimes it's people trying to take advantage of them. But we did open the Veterans Employment Centers, and we were happy to have them be so successful that we were able to bring you on as our first director of the Veterans Centers, and you have taken them to a whole nother level. So tell me about the Veterans Employment Centers.
So, Sean, you're spot on. So the nexus or the origins of the Veterans Employment Centers actually dated way back when I used to teach at transition classes. Way back when there was a lot of wiggle room in the old curriculum. The old building had 3 classes of 100 students going through every week, but we also had wide hallways. So what we would do back when I used to work there, we would bring those vetted partners in, those partners that had demonstrated that they had skin in the game and they were truly committed in connecting with our military community. Well, 2 things happened roughly about 12 years ago. They updated the curriculum. So all of that wiggle room that we had to get those vetted providers podium time went away. But they also physically altered the building. And out of those 3 classes of 100, it became 6 classes of 50, and they narrowed the hallways. So all of these vetted resources lost access to our military community, and now our military community was left languishing in that ocean of goodwill.
Right.
So out of that challenge, obviously the Workforce Council came up with the Veterans Employment Centers as to be essentially the convening place where all of our vetted providers can actually connect with our military community.
Yeah, we want to keep our veterans here, no doubt about that. And,
Right.
and traditionally, we've heard that it's a third are going to stay here regardless. They've put roots down. A third's probably going to go home, but there's that third in the middle that really haven't determined what they want to do.
Right.
We want to keep all 100% of them, but we're really targeting that third that hasn't decided what they want to do, and maybe we can get some of those that are deciding to go home and keep them here, and then we'll connect the other third to employment opportunities. What are the services that we're offering at the centers to really make that connection?
Absolutely. So to really hinge on that, Sean, it's critical that we get as far left of transition as possible. And that means reaching out to the military spouse. A lot of times you'll have a lot of service providers say, hey, we serve veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses. Well, if you ever read anything coming out of the Workforce Council, is we serve military spouses, our transitioning service members. And let's not forget those folks who go back to school using that post 9/11 GI Bill, those student veterans, because over 60% of those folks who transition out do plan on going back to school. So the solution is provide those meaningful career and entrepreneurial opportunities for those military spouses, make Hampton Roads a positive experience for them. And then when that service member decides to get out, that spouse is going to tell them, hey, I don't care what you do, but we're going to make Hampton Roads our home.
Absolutely. So we launched the first center in Norfolk in 2018, rousing success. And then we started hearing from our partners on the peninsula saying, where's our center? And so with a great grant from Smithfield Foods,
Yes.
So we opened our Newport News location. It's our location powered by Smithfield Foods. I've got to throw in that name every once in a while. But since that time, we've gained a lot of traction, and we've really been picking up a lot of steam. It's really under your leadership, Sultan. Tell us how you've been working closely with the military community to really engage our programming into that pre-transition type activities. as you said.
Gotcha. So Sean, at the end of the day, it boils down to relationships, right? And I've been quite fortunate to been in the transition space for the better part of about 13 years now. As I mentioned, started off teaching TAP, did third-party military recruiting for a while, still had relationships with the installations. Then obviously my last employer was a large one,
Yes.
and maintained all of those positive
We
relationships.
can stay with it. With Newport News Shipbuilding, we one of our biggest partners. So.
Absolutely. And shout out to the talent acquisition team over there at Newport News Shipbuilding. So with those relationships with the installations, they're always in the driver's seats. We are very, very intentional about not duplicating anything that they're currently doing. Matter of fact, we just had a strategic meeting last Friday in which the conversation was like, hey, listen, where are the gaps? There's a new government accountability office report on the transition program. What were some of the issues identified? And what are some ways that the council can supplement those existing efforts? So those relationships have really, really been a key part of our two centers becoming that central focus point for our entire military ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's all branches. So you're working with even the Coast Guard. I mean, every piece of it. So,
even the Space Force.
Even the Space Force. That's awesome. Okay, so describe to me, you have a veteran walking into one of our centers and they meet the person right at the front. What do they get? What happens?
So I would say at the end of the day, the simplest thing to tell our military community is that every single Tuesday, we have guaranteed informational job interviews at both of our centers. So to your point, Sean, when somebody comes in, walks in, they meet our career advisors, and our career advisors are almost that sounding board. What are you here for? How can we help you? We do partner with the Levers and DevOps. Those are the American Job Centers team from the JVSG grant. So if we have somebody who may not be necessarily staying in Hampton Roads, we could do that warm handoff to that team as well. So when we figure out what they're looking for in terms of whether it's employment, education, entrepreneurship, or sometimes they need supportive services, every single day of the week, we have those key vetted community partners physically in our office to help out with those needs.
That's great to hear. What are some of the partners that we have as part of the center? I mean, that really is one of the big cornerstones of these centers.
Right. So it's all about skin in the game, Sean. And you mentioned, Smithfield Foods. Shout out to them as well for truly putting skin in the game with regards to our Newport News Center. Newport News Shipbuilding. Obviously, they've got hiring needs, everything from skilled labor to exempt level salaried positions. They're a part of our efforts. We also have IT International. They regularly support it through their staff. We also have Onward to Opportunity. So Syracuse University, that phenomenal program, they're in there on our Education Thursdays, as well as ECPI University. They have an ABET accredited engineering program that's a really good fit for our military community.
Great. You also bring in different workshops, different individuals that can come in and talk about different topics. I know you've had the community colleges as part of those efforts as well.
Right.
So how are we getting veterans interested in our in-demand occupations that are here in the region? So we've got maritime, healthcare, IT. How are we starting to get those individuals the knowledge that they need to be successful in those industries if they're interested?
Connecting them with those partners. A lot of times I may have folks may complain to me, hey, Sultan, do we have a list of the employers that are going to be at this event? And the short answer to that is no. I would much rather start those conversations because a lot of times our military community, they say no to things that they have no idea what they're saying no to. So when they think of maritime, they think automatically default to maybe skilled trades where not realize that's port operations, it's logistics, warehousing. There's a whole other umbrella. So starting those conversations earlier, so that way our military community truly understands those opportunities. Like you mentioned, maritime is one, advanced manufacturing, cyber and IT, biotech and healthcare, and let's not forget logistics and warehousing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are great. So this leads kind of into my next conversation is you've taken a new way of getting the veterans and transition service members to understand the opportunities here. I remember years ago, we used to have multiple job fairs for and career events for veterans throughout our region. It became overwhelming and it was very hard to get partners. You've done a great thing this year in that we're coordinating with the Chambers of Commerce to have 4 regional events this year. Tell me about this.
Gotcha. So last year, Sean, we did, once again, get with all the installations. We came to the conclusion that there was a hodgepodge of military job fairs. A lot of times they were actually competing against each other. The same week that Oceana was having a job fair would be the same week that Fort Eustis may be having one.
Right.
So we decided to do 4 major events, 2 on the south side, 2 on the peninsula, the 757 career summits. Essentially, the day before the actual summit, there's a networking mixer. Now, here's the cool thing. All of our job seekers, when they register, we capture what their rank is, what their background is, what industries they're interested in getting into. And all of the employers actually get access to that information before the event. So if I'm looking for somebody with a specific skill set, I can start that conversation, Sean, earlier at the networking mixer. The morning of the summit, we have moderated industry panel discussions, LinkedIn headshots, as well as on-demand resume reviews. And then in the afternoon, we have the traditional career fair. We had a job seeker that I asked her for her feedback. She said, Sultan, I actually went to all 3 events, and this is how it paid out for me. At the networking social, I met about 6 new people. I went to the career summit, the morning session, and 3 out of that 6 I saw again that morning. And now they knew me on a first name basis and introduced me to other people.
That's great.
Went to the career fair that afternoon, had further conversations. So at the end of the summit, Sean, she actually had about 25 new professional contacts in her professional contacts list. The employers,
Fantastic.
on the flip side, said, Sultan, you know what? Being able to look at all of the candidates independent of even a resume and figure out who I need to start conversations with was phenomenal. So we look forward to the other 3.
That's awesome. So the other 3 are with Oceana.
Oceana's next up.
Okay.
That's going to be in May. And then Fort Eustis back on the peninsula is going to be in August. And we're going to bring it home at Naval Station Norfolk in November.
And then rinse and repeat for next year, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. Another great program that I know you've really been spearheading is partnership with the Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Hire Vets Now.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that as well, because I know we've even participated in Hire Vets Now by bringing veterans on as internships, basically, but I'm probably underselling it. But
Right. So it's all about, once again, those relationships. So we don't want to impede anything that the Commonwealth as a whole is doing. So with the Department for Veteran Services, their V3 program, the Virginia Chamber, we use those events actually, Sean, to kind of create the flagships for the scheduling for this year.
Good.
So a lot of our events support each other.
Great.
And we steer a lot of folks to those programs. And like you said, we do have our fellowships program as well.
Good. It's very, very coordinated together. Sultan, one other program that I think is fantastic and I think our region needs to build on is the Skill Bridge program. Could you talk a little bit about the Skill Bridge program and how it can support our region?
Absolutely. So the Department of Defense has a Skill Bridge program. The best way to describe it is it is a paid internship for our military professionals exiting the service. So a service member who is within 6 months of transitioning out of service can actually go work at a company. There is no requirement to hire that person, just to provide a meaningful training experience. So a lot of folks call it you get to try before you buy, but that service member gets a meaningful work experience. Now, even though the instruction does say 6 months, most operational commanders there in terms of mission readiness, because remember, they don't get a replacement until that person is out, can build a program about 90 days or so and create a very robust pipeline of talent into that company.
So if somebody's interested in that program, they can reach out to your team and you fill them in on that?
Absolutely.
Good. Sultan, I'm so close to the Veterans Center. I know a lot about what's going on. So for our millions of listeners on this podcast, what have I missed about the Veterans Employment Centers?
What have you missed? I would say probably just get there, right? In the world of technology, LinkedIn, et cetera, social media, there's just no substitute for that in-person, person-to-person interaction.
Because we got a great staff over there. So if somebody's interested in finding out where the local Veteran Employment Center is, how do they find that information out?
They could just go to hrvetswork.org. Or they can even Google 757 Career Summit, takes them directly to our Eventbrite page.
Great. And as always, they can visit theworkforcecouncil.org. And we're excited that this is one of our programs that we put together for the community, and we've brought this on. You've covered a lot of the workshops. Any other workshops coming up that I may have missed, or?
Our executive one-day seminars. So these are geared for those folks who have done a full career, a little bit more senior, to get a real-world HR perspective on how to transition.
Great.
And those are available once again online at our Eventbrite site.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Sultan, for joining me today. I know you've got to get back and get a lot of work done today, but tell everyone where they can reach us again.
At hrvetswork.org, you can get directly to our Veterans Employment site.
Well, thank you. Again, you can reach also through the theworkforcecouncil.org and click on the Hampton Roads Veterans Employment Center tab. Thank you for listening to this month's episode of ThinkHire, and to our military friends, thank you for your service, and reach out to Sultan and he can get you connected with all the services we have to offer here in Hampton Roads.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sultan.